Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 93 of the All Dolphins podcast. I am joined today by Omar, as usual. Omar, also joined by good friend Patricia Traina. She is the publisher, writer for SI Fan Nation Network, sister site Giants Country, also the host of the Locked On Giants podcast. Patricia, you hang on tight for a second. We'll get to you in a minute. We have to do our spiel. Today's episode 93. I'm going to throw out Trace Armstrong here as the player to be recognized for that jersey number. Great defensive end out of the University of Florida, for whom the Dolphins traded a second and third round pick to the Chicago Bears to acquire. And then he became a great bookend pass rusher with Jason Taylor for about 4 or 5 years.
Great.
Trace Armstrong was a great pass rusher. Yes. Went on to play for the Oakland Raiders and then became a player agent. Omar, yes, he was a great pass rusher.
And he also lost the battle for Players Union president, which obviously went to DeMaurice Smith, and DeMaurice Smith lasted a good decade plus before recently retiring or being forced out. I'm not necessarily certain which one.
Maybe both. One last thing about Trace Armstrong before we talk about the Giants, because today is Behind Enemy Lines Day. One quick fact about Trace Armstrong, the author of one of the greatest plays in Dolphin playoff history, when he sacked Doug Flutie at the end of the game to preserve a 24-17 win in the 1998 first round of the playoffs. Great game, exciting. Eric Moulds for the Bills at 250 receiving yards or thereabouts, but Trace Armstrong saved the day. There was no saving the day or saving the night last night for the New York Giants, who played, as my friend Omar here, Patricia would say, like booty cheeks. Got dumped 24-3 by the Seattle Seahawks. So Patricia, was it as bad as it appeared?
Oh gosh. I'm telling you, normally when I do my podcast, I'm very optimistic, upbeat. I could be dead tired, which I am. I'm not going to lie, but I'll still find a way to be upbeat. I let it rip. I absolutely, I mean, I can't defend it. The football is just, I don't know what happened to this team. They upgraded everything.
Hold on. Okay, this is my timeout signal, okay? I'm going to be transparent here. I'm a Brian Daboll fan. Since he was here with the Miami Dolphins as an offensive coordinator in a nightmarish 2011 season, which really wasn't his fault because it was the lockout year. Basically, they showed up at training camp and he said, here's a playbook. And they didn't really get comfortable or adjusted to the offense until midseason and started winning games with Matt Moore as a starting quarterback. I've been a fan of his since then, followed his work. Last year, coach of the year. So don't act like he wasn't a winner then.
I'm not.
I like
Daboll.
Yes. But that team lost their starting running back, Saquon Barkley. And then how many offensive linemen are they down?
Omar, they upgraded their receiving weapons. Okay. The defense was supposed to be better. The special teams was supposed to be better. They brought back the same coordinators. They have this Daniel Jones year 2 of the system. All right. Yes. I know Saquon Barkley was missing. I know Andrew Thomas was missing, but hey, didn't they get blown out by the Cowboys 40-0 with those 2 guys in the lineup? So I'm sorry. I'm not buying this.
Cowboys are a good team. Cowboys are top 6 team in the league.
I don't care. You have to play. Look, you play up to the competition. All right. Even if you don't beat them, they weren't even in the same ballpark that night against the Cowboys. They weren't in the same ballpark with last night with the Seahawks. And what kills me, the Seahawks didn't even play that good. They had the ball for 24 minutes. They had like 281 yards of offense. The Giants said, "Happy Christmas, guys. Here's the game." Special teams, terrible. I mean, the defense was okay. We'll give the defense a nod. The offense, they're trying to be like the Buffalo Bills when they don't have Josh Allen. They don't have the talent that the Buffalo Bills had. They have the offensive line issues. I mean, what is this team doing?
But Patricia, here's my thing. I looked at the Giants last year, and I looked at that roster, and I'm like, how in the hell did that team make the playoffs? And then I'm like, Brian Daboll, worked some kind of miracles. Yes, he deserved coach of the year. And I know people were talking about Kevin Sirianni for what the Eagles did. That roster is stacked. Doug Peterson might have been, you could have had an argument for him, but to me, in terms of roster and getting the most out of it, was Brian Dable. Whereas, is it this not what we're seeing right now, kind of like the Giants playing more to their talent level, or would you argue they're actually more talented than we've seen?
I think it's a combination of a bunch of things. You know, I started to make a list of coaching points, and I'm going to run an article over on Giants Country about this. Things that the coaches did this past offseason that I disagreed with, starting with that offensive line rotation. They never allowed that offensive line to get settled. And so now all of a sudden you have Joshua Zudu filling in for Andrew Thomas when Joshua Zudu did not practice at left tackle until literally 10 days before the start of the season. You have Marcus McKethan at right guard, who came off a pup after missing his entire rookie season. And he's now starting ahead of, Mark Lewinsky, who admittedly had a bad game against the Cowboys, but now who can't get on the field ahead of Shane Lemieux. All right. You had that. Daniel Jones in the offense, the starting offense, played one series, I think 6 plays in the preseason. Come on, you've got all these new pieces and you're not letting them meld together. And I don't care what coaches say, you cannot simulate game speed in practice because practice is a controlled environment. So, you've got that issue. Special teams, as I mentioned, has been an absolute mess. I mean, 6 penalties.
Join the club, Patricia.
Yeah, we
join the club.
We know about bad special teams in Miami.
Yeah, join the club.
Unbelievable. And the discipline penalties, half of them were discipline related. So, and the little mistakes like Eric Gray, who, diving for a punt and then muffing it. Thank God it was recovered. Guys not downing Jamie Gillen's punt. I mean, I can go on and on, the tackling issue. Remember, Wink Martindale last week said, go ahead, chart them. We cleaned up the tackling issue. Yeah. According to Pro Football Focus, if you buy into their stats, 10 missed tackles, 6 less than what they had against the 49ers.
Broncos at 24. Broncos at 24 last week against the Dolphins.
All right, but it's like they're not. Look, Joe Shane and Brian Dable both said at the end of training camp when they were asked, "Is this team better? What is this team?" And they said, "Give us a few weeks and we'll find out." What we are finding out is this team is not very good right now. They're missing on the fundamentals. Daniel Jones has regressed, admittedly, because he's being knocked around like a pinball.
Yes.
But he's also holding the ball too long. His internal clock is off. He's making questionable decisions with the ball. I mean, his 2 interceptions.
He's back to being Daniel Jones.
What are you doing?
Hold on. He's back to being Daniel Jones. Last year was an aberration of who he was as a quarterback. He got paid.
Money year, contract year.
Absolutely. Money year contract. But hold on, Patricia. Let's get to the offensive line issues because I'm very curious. When I watched that game, and I can't lie and say I watched previous Giants games, but I watched the Seahawks game, and man, was that offensive line a disaster. And I know that they had some injury fill-ins, but what is the status on Andrew Thomas, and is he going to be available for the Dolphins game?
I'm not counting on it. Andrew Thomas really messed up that hamstring. He tried to practice last week. The Giants started their practice Thursday, so they went Thursday, Friday, Saturday for the Monday night game. Andrew Thomas started the Thursday practice, did not feel right. I saw him in the locker room after practice, and no offense to our older and wiser listeners out there, but Andrew Thomas was moving like, not like a 20-year-old. Let's put it that way.
Hey. Sorry.
I love you, Alan. Come on. But I'm serious. He was not moving well. And, I happened to be with another colleague of mine and we went up to him and we said, Andrew, how you doing? And you know how players are. They're like, oh, I'm doing good. But the way Andrew said it, it's like, I'm doing good. Like he was wincing in pain and he was moving like a turtle. And I said to my colleague, he ain't coming back for another couple of weeks, at least. Hamstrings are tricky. Okay. So I'd be surprised if he's back. Saquon, on the other hand, I don't know if you were going to ask me about him.
Yeah.
I think Saquon may have a better shot of coming back. I don't know. I'll have to see if he practices tomorrow and how much
he likes to make his return games against the Miami Dolphins. And I remember the last time he came back from a knee injury, Miami was the first game, and he looked horrible.
Exactly. And that's the thing with Saquon. He tends to rush himself back because he's such a competitive type. I know he wanted to play Monday night, but you figure, okay, the Seahawks had, I think, like the 6th best run defense and the 31st ranked pass defense. So maybe it made sense to hold them out because you
Oh,
could,
if there was a game from the
theoretically, if
comeback,
you could,
if there was a game from the comeback, it's this one here against this
exactly,
team.
exactly. So I think, he wants to come back, but you're right. When he comes back too soon, he doesn't look like Saquon. And the other thing you have to take into consideration, could he potentially make that injury worse
Yes,
by coming back too soon?
and
He's also
damage
he's also
his.
playing. He's playing for a new contract too.
Yes, he could be damaging his market by going
Exactly.
out there and playing on 70%. If I were his agent, I would advise him against doing that and make sure that he returns at full strength, because every minute you put a film on it's going to be impacting your future price.
Exactly. But that's not how Saquon is wired. He's a competitor. Doesn't matter what it is. I've seen him in the locker room. They have ping pong tables and chessboards set up. Saquon gets into it. And
Yeah.
you've seen him on the field, how he gets into it. He wants to be out there. He's a team captain. He takes pride in his game, takes pride in his performance, and he takes pride in helping the team win. And for him to be on the sideline sitting there, it's killing him inside. It's got to be.
Let me ask you about another high-profile player that you guys acquired. Not you guys, but the Giants acquired last season in Darren Waller. What's going on there? What's with that situation in terms of you spent the assets to acquire him, you restructured the contract, and nothing?
Yeah, where has he been, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so Darren Waller at the start of the season popped up on the injury report. This after making it through the whole summer without any incident, with that, because last year, as you know, he ended the season with a hamstring injury.
Yeah.
And then apparently there was some nerve issue, some nerve related damage or something involved there. So anyhow, he shows up on the injury report week 1, and now all of a sudden he's getting a Veterans Day rest, which supposedly was planned. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, why wasn't this showing up during training camp? So I think part of that initially hurt his explosiveness. There was a couple of plays, I think it was in the 49er game, I want to say, where the ball was high, and we used to see Darren, we used to see him in training camp jump up and make these spectacular catches at the high point, and he wasn't able to do it. So, I think that's part of the problem. But here's the other thing. The Giants lost Daniel Bellinger on the failed tush push on that 4th and 1. I hate that name, by the way, tush push, but that's what it's called, I guess.
Brotherly shove.
Love it.
Okay, whatever, whatever you want to call it. But Daniel Bellinger suffered a knee injury. Now, Daniel Bellinger is their second tight end, or TE2, and their best blocker, in my opinion, from that group. Darren Waller can block, but you really don't want to have him, taking on the big guys. That's Bellinger, aka Bane, because I don't know if you've seen him. The guy is jacked. So he's, that's his role. Now Bellinger goes out with an injury, and now guess what? Waller's got to be kept in to block. And he was talking about, how he had a chip, and he'll do what they ask him to, but I suspect that cut into some of his targets. And I'm not sure, this goes back to what I was saying about what are the coaches trying to do here? I mean, you couldn't have a running back do more of the chipping. I mean, I just
not with that O-line. Have you seen that O-line?
You put another big boy out there, and they did. There were a couple instances where they did put another big boy or two out there, where I think they had at one point they had 7 offensive linemen. I want to say they had 2 other guys reported as eligible. I was like, okay, why don't you just do that?
Yeah.
I mean, that
you might have to, because it was hunting season.
It was, look, Evan Neal, can we talk about him real quick?
Ooh,
Please do.
Woof.
Listen, I've stopped by Evan Neal's locker several times since the season started. This is a young man who I know is working his butt off. He is trying. This isn't like Eric Flowers, who you guys probably remember from his days down in Miami. Evan Neal is
trying to. He was trying. Wait a minute. He was trying.
He was decent in his 1 year in Miami.
Eric Flowers had a, he never fit in up here. He just. But anyway, let's stick with Evan Neal. There were a couple plays I saw on film, especially towards the end there, where he was like a matador. And I'm saying to myself, Evan, what are you doing here? And it's like the guy's got talent, but is he? I don't know if he has the feet to play tackle at this level. I don't know about his balance. I think his balance is an issue. Um, and
Yeah.
I hate to say this, I never like to question another person's mean streak, especially a football player who could probably flatten me, with just one thump. But I wonder if he has that streak in him, that that dog, if you will, that an offensive lineman has to have. So I don't know. Is the answer to move him inside to guard?
They have to
Possibly.
salvage him, and
I don't know.
that's a top 10 whiff right now, and they have to trying to
Yeah.
salvage that
It's
dude.
disappointing for sure because he hasn't improved. And last year you can make the argument, okay, he was playing on the right side after playing the left side in his senior year or his final year at Alabama. You can make that argument if you wanted to, but and this past offseason, as you guys might know, he worked with Willie Anderson to find a stance that was comfortable. And I watch Evan Neal, and you guys, I'm sure, watch tape too. Watch him. I don't know how he doesn't draw more false starts, because he does what I call like shaking the hand. Like if you watch him in pass set, he just kind of jerks his right arm back like a split second before the ball is snapped. And how he doesn't get flagged for that more often. I mean, that's one of many things. And then the pad level sometimes comes up, and sometimes it's like, where's the physicality? I mean, especially on those plays when he's like a matador.
So what basically you're saying is that he sucks. But okay,
That's your word.
sure.
That's your word.
Going back to Darren Waller for a second here, Dolphin fans will remember he actually had a big game against the Dolphins December 2020 against Eric Rowe, who actually, Omar, if you remember, had very good coverage on him all night, except that Waller kept making plays on the ball. And I'm thinking, I look at this Giants offense, if Waller doesn't hurt the Dolphin defense, who on this team will?
Yeah, don't
who?
Wendell Robinson has a lot of talent. I'm a Parrish Campbell fan. I don't know what the status and the situation is with that there. But ultimately, Daniel Jones has to have time to throw the football. And when you just watch that, I know there was a rash of injuries at the position, and obviously we got to wait for the injury report to come out to figure out what the status was. But yeah, I mean, I like the Seahawks defense, but they're not that good. I just think the Giants offensive line is that bad, and you cannot have any passing plays when your quarterback has no time to throw the ball.
Well, then why would they shouldn't even bother showing up to Hard Rock then? I mean, it's like, I'm looking at that team. Who could hurt him? Jalen Hyatt was the guy I really liked at Tennessee. Correct me if I'm wrong. I had under the impression that he was very good in training camp and in the preseason. I don't think I've heard much from him in the regular season so far. And again, if Jones doesn't have time to throw, I get it. But my question again, who on this offense can hurt the Dolphins?
I mean, if they use guys correctly, Jalen Hyatt can hurt them. Saquon, if he's healthy, can hurt them. Waller can hurt them. But here's the problem. Watch Daniel Jones on film. And one thing you'll probably notice, I know I've noticed it, Daniel Jones doesn't look past the sticks very often. So there was a play, I was looking at the all 22 this morning. There was one play where Wan'Dale Robinson, who's taking over that Paris Campbell role. By the way, Paris Campbell, in my opinion, they've been misusing him. That's another story. Wan'Dale Robinson got deep. He got deep and he got open, and he was literally doing jumping jacks going, hey, I'm open. Daniel never looked at him. He watch his eyes. You see, he always tends to look towards the sticks. And that's why I don't remember his exact average pass yards, on a throw, but I think it's something like around 3 point something. It's low. And that's not always a result of the offensive line. I mean, there have been times when he had a clean pocket. There was another play in which he had a clean pocket and he bailed out of the pocket. Instead of setting his feet, scanning the field, it's like with Daniel Jones, what's frustrating with him, and you kind of hope that this would kind of progress this year, he sticks with his first read a lot of times,
Oof.
and I don't know if it's because he's rushing things, if he feels the pressure. I think sometimes Daniel feels the pressure. It's like, oh my God, we're down. I got to make a play. And
I mean,
So he's
that's
become
what young quarterbacks.
He's become dump it down, Daniel.
He's always been
right,
dumping
it
down
becomes a
Daniel.
dinky
Hold on.
dunk.
So
Yeah.
He's always been dumping down Daniel. He's averaging 5.8 yards per attempt. What I do find interesting is that he's completing 68.7% of his passes, which I think is rather high for him. But he's got a 69.7 passer rating, which you can't blame all of that on the offensive line.
No.
Unfortunately, that's pretty disastrous. But I do believe in Dable. I do believe that he will right the ship. Have you seen? I saw the press conference after the game. Obviously, that's a frustrating situation when your team is 1-3 and you're pretty much getting blown out in all of your losses. Have you seen him start to show some frustration with the pressure that he's kind of under with this second-year team not meeting expectations?
Not really. Dable is pretty even-keeled. He's never going to throw anybody under the bus. I don't know if you guys remember, but in week 2, there was that big, question of, did he take over the play calling from Mike Kafka? Which, the play calling hasn't been that great either this year. Let's call it.
Any coach that ever takes over the play calling never admits that they take over the play calling.
Right.
Ask Brian Flores about that.
Dable's not going to, Dable's not going to go and say, yeah, I took it over. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, but years ago, when the late Jim Fossil had Sean Payton on the staff, he famously took over the play calling and everybody knew about it because it was the worst kept secret. But that's not how Dable operates. He doesn't throw people under the bus. And I think the players and his coaches appreciate him for that. Today he was asked on the call, are you happy with the job being done by Bobby Johnson, the offensive line coach? And he goes, look, I'm not happy with anything right now because we're 1-3, standard coach speak. And last night, I can't tell you how many times I should have, if it had been a drinking game, I think we all would have been drunk every time he said, we got to do better. We got to do better. He must have said that about over a half dozen times. I mean, thank God that wasn't a drinking game. Otherwise, I really would have been passed out. But, Dable, he is very meticulous, I think, with the preparation. I don't think he's the type to panic. I'm not sure at one point, and it's a question I'd like to ask him the next time, he speaks to the media. How do you, at what point do you say to yourself, okay, look, this just isn't working. We've got to do something different versus, not panicking, which I think is a fair question. So, yeah, I mean, I haven't lost faith in Dable. I think he's a good coach. I think he knows what he's doing. He hasn't lost the locker room. But, they got to figure something out because, again, they had 11 days to clean up a lot of the mess that they made in San Francisco.
I mean, but San Francisco, here's the thing that I don't think Giants fans keep in context. And I'm not making excuses for Dable, even though I really like him. Dallas is a top 6 team in the league. San Fran is a top 6 team in the league. Oh, what are you shaking your head for?
Dude, it's your home opener on Sunday night. You can't say, well, it's, we lost by 40 points.
You weren't ready.
You also had how many months to prepare for that game, Omar?
I mean, you were not ready.
I mean, that's a
so
stretch.
it doesn't mean that you're ready for your season opener.
Then whose fault is
did they have their bookend left tackle? No, they didn't.
They did have Andrew Thomas for that game, did they not?
They did. Andrew Thomas hurt his hamstring on that blocked field goal that was returned for a touchdown, tried to gut it out, but they did have him for most of that game.
Listen, the competition level that you faced at the beginning of the season, and that's part of the byproduct of being in the playoffs, you get a harder schedule. It's a factor. And now you're going to be playing the Dolphins. I'm not going to say the Dolphins are a top 6 team in the league, but your Dolphins on the road, the heat and humidity of South Florida. So your team is going to be in for it. You're probably going to have to play a lot of backups early in the game just to survive the game and get to the third quarter. And you're probably not going to have a healthy Saquon Barkley. You're not going to have an Andrew Thomas. And you have to figure out a way. That's part of the NFL. But teams have rebounded from bad starts to the season. Look at the Miami Dolphins. Brian Flores did it.
I mean, anything's possible. That's why you show up and you play the game.
Yes.
Is it too much to ask that you at least be competitive as opposed to having your doors blown off. I don't think that's a lot to ask.
Well,
I could have swallowed the Cowboys loss a lot better if that had been like a 40-20 game and the Giants had competed, especially since they had all offseason. They knew who they were going to play on opening night as of May. They had all that time to prepare. I could have swallowed, the 49er loss a little bit better, because they did keep that kind of close, if you think about it, for 3 quarters until the wheels fall off. The Seattle game, they had 11 days to prepare for that. And the same problems popped up. So at what point do you say, okay, maybe the problems are in the game plan or in the coaching? I mean, it's not all on the players.
Look at that.
All that said, Patricia, what would make any Giants fan think they're not headed for another smackdown, against them Sunday against the Dolphins, who their last time at home won by 50. Again, coming to the Hard Rock Stadium with an injury depleted team. Because I'm looking at it from South Florida, I'm thinking, yeah, it's a blowout.
It could be. I mean, look, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They had to win against Seattle to even their record, because they didn't, with Miami on tap and then the Bills on Sunday night the week after, they could start off 1-5. That scares me. But I need to see, and I'm speaking for myself here. I need to see a little bit more competitiveness, because there are times when I watch this team and it looks like sometimes the effort just isn't there with some guys on certain plays. That bothers me. There's no excuse for that. I need to just see fight. Last year, this team, they handled adversity so well. They really did. This year, not so much so. And that concerns me, because the game, yes, a lot of it's physical, but a lot of it's also mental. And, you can do one or two things when you get beat. You can either crawl into your shell and feel sorry for yourself, or you can come out and say, this is not acceptable. I'm going to come out and I'm going to kick the what out of my next opponent.
What would give you confidence or hope that the Giants defense can slow down the Dolphin offense in Miami?
Oof. Well, Kayvon Thibodeau.
I guess there's our answer right there.
Kayvon Thibodeau showed up in the game. He seems, they got Azeez Ojulari back, so that helped. But Kayvon Thibodeau had a if I were handing out stars to Giant players from Monday night, he would definitely get one. So yeah, that I think Dexter Lawrence, who I think was kind of quiet against the Seahawks, but that might have just been an off game. I think he can be a wrecker, excuse me. So I would feel good about that. The defensive secondary, I'm still not 100%. Look, they're going through growing pains. They got a rookie there in Deonte Banks, who is going to have to take his lumps. They put Adoree Jackson back there because they realized that, Trey Hawkins might be a little overmatched right now. But look, if it's going to come down to, who can wreck the game, I would say look for Kayvon Thibodeau. I would say maybe look for Dexter Lawrence. Yeah. I would hope Leonard Williams would finally, kind of step up a little bit more. I mean, some of his play this year has been a little bit uninspiring. I'd like to see Bobby Okereke, the middle linebacker, get more comfortable with what he's doing, because right now he still doesn't look like he's comfortable with this defense. Wink Martindale, he's going to bring the heat. That's just what he does. You guys probably faced him a lot when he was the coordinator at with the Ravens, but you live by the blitz, you die by the blitz. And
although this is where, sorry, Patricia, but this is where I might point out that Martindale's blitzing didn't work out too well last year in week 2 in Baltimore at M&T Bank Stadium, when the Dolphins won 42-38 and 2 or 3 6-touchdown passes. So yeah. Maybe that'll get him to reconsider his approach.
I doubt it. I doubt it. That's how he's hardwired like that.
Yep.
It's all about, I'm going to be a bully. I'm going to impose my will on you, and you good luck stopping me.
We would
Well,
love,
not bend but don't break.
yeah, we would love and appreciate that a little bit more than bend but don't break. Where right now they're just gonna give Daniel Jones everything in front of him, and you can have it. We'll clamp down in the red zone.
Right.
But it's going to be very interesting. I think if the Giants have the best chance to beat, they have to beat up Miami's offensive line. You do have the horses to do it on your defensive line, and right now Miami is susceptible. It's not Giants bad, but it's not looking good, especially if Connor Williams, their starting center, can't play.
That's the line for bad offensive lines. Giants.
Yeah,
bad.
no, that.
By
that
the way,
probably,
the Giants might not have their rookie center. John
Well, I was
Michael
gonna ask you
Schmitz
about
might not
him,
be
yeah.
playing because he's got the shoulder injury that he sustained on that tush push.
Oh
Whoa,
man. Wow.
yeah,
They are banged up. They just
Giants created a
added Justin
baseline.
Pugh. They just added Justin Pugh to their
Oh, that's the
practice squad. I would not be surprised if Justin Pugh gets called up because they are hurting on that offensive line now.
Giants probably set a new low for what I expect in terms of offensive line play, and I'm an offensive line lover, so yes, that was probably the worst performance I've ever seen.
It was bad.
It was.
Yeah.
Well,
It was.
we're going to see how it goes on Sunday. We're going to wrap this up. Patricia, thank you so much. Again, you can find Patricia's work at Giants Country. She's the publisher editor for said website, which is part of the SI Fan Nation network. Patricia also is the host of the Locked On Giants podcast, which I'm sure is going to be a whole lot of fun all week. Omar, you and I subscribe, download, like, share, do all that good stuff for the All Dolphins podcast on YouTube, also on the Fans First Sports Network under Miami Dolphins Insider, where you get your audio podcast. Tomorrow, we start the prep week with the first injury report of the week. And I guess that's it, right, Omar?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Patricia. We appreciate
Thanks.
you.
Thanks
We
for having
appreciate you, and we love your honesty.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks for
We're
having
an
me.
honest podcast over here.
That's what we try.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.